Standards for state test scores have changed, and some educators say they don't give an accurate account of how students are really doing. Glad you're with us. I'm Sarah Whaley.
And I'm Rick Marinon. The concerned educators say State Superintendent Ryan Walters lowered the standards, and they want to know why. Fox 23's Devin Lyon is digging into the data and asking those tough questions about what this means for families. He's live in the newsroom with what he's learned.
Yeah, the question for several teachers and students is, how can you compare a student's academic growth year to year with having that baseline for proficiency scores changed? Now, this baseline is called score cuts, and that was changed by the Department of Education last year for last year's test. And several of the school districts I talked to today told me they were not aware of those changes.
Look, the reality is standards were changed and were passed through the legislature. The test had to be changed in accordance with the new standards.
State Superintendent Ryan Walters answered questions around these changes at the last State Board of Education meeting.
We are actively working districts through that process now to say, here's how these decisions were made.
He claims they've been working with schools on this development since the standards for proficiency scores were allegedly lowered. But when I reached out to schools in the area, they told me they've heard nothing about these changes, only that test scores were released last week. Here's the text I sent to some unnamed school districts Friday morning. Did y'all receive any updates from the state about test score changes? One school responded, no, but in the results, it's clear they changed. Gains that are totally unreasonable. Another responded with this. No, my understanding is we are aware that they changed, but are not aware what those specific changes were. Here's a look at state total numbers that two unnamed schools shared with me today. For example, in third grade English and language arts from the 2023 to 24 test scores, the state saw an overall 22% increase, which is massive when compared to the year prior that saw no change, and 2 years ago when there was a 4% increase. Fifth grade math scores increased by 10% from the previous year, when they had also not been known to jump up or down by a few points between each year. Eighth grade English also saw a jump by 20% for the entire state year to year, but the year prior there was actually a 5% decrease.
We want to make sure that people understand it's a different test over different standards. So what is the comparison to last year? What are the things you can take away from it?
Now, I also question lawmakers in the state from both political parties, find out what they say is the problem with making such drastic changes. I'll have that part of my story ready for you on Fox 23 News at 6. Live in the newsroom, covering news that matters, Devin Lyon, Fox 23 News.
We also reached out to the State Board of Education about the reactions from educators, as has happened in many requests from Walters' office, so we did not get a response despite multiple attempts.